If we want everybody to have a fair chance to succeed in their lives, we must first get rid of the standardized testing. I'm going to share with you all that is wrong with the standardized testing and why it's not a fair way to measure true academic knowledge. Um, and why it should not be a gateway to college. Money plays a huge role in success on these types of tests, and that is why it should not be such a big component to somebody's future. I'm a senior in high school and I've taken both the ACT and the SAT. I'm a student who's always gotten almost straight A's, has done a ton of volunteer work. I never struggled a ton in school, but when I was a junior and I took these standardized tests, I did not do well at all. My family could not afford to send me to the prep classes. I didn't go to a private school, so I didn't have all this extra help. And it really was bothering me because my whole academic career, I've done nothing but succeed. But then I did not do well at all on these tests. So for the past 18 months, I've been reading all about why taking the ACT and SAT may not be the best way to determine if somebody should get into school. I mean, let's just take a moment and imagine working for 16 years towards going to college. You get perfect grades, you volunteer, your teachers all like you have amazing references. But then it comes time to take the ACT and SAT. You're going up against kids that went to private school, who had time to take the prep classes, who had money to do it, who had tutors, who had support from their families, while your parents were working all the time and you couldn't afford these classes. You didn't go to private school, you didn't have a private tutor. So when it came time to take the ACT and SAT, the only piece of advice you had was from your older brother, who said, when in doubt, always circle B. That's all you had. And so then you get your scores back and you get yours, and they're not as good as the kids that got all the extra support, and it doesn't seem fair to you. And then you're going up against these students that had the extra help versus you who didn't when you're applying to college. To me, it just doesn't seem like a fair way to determine somebody's success in college. First, I will discuss what is wrong with the test cheating, and how it destroys creativity in the classroom. But in the end, the only point that I need you to remember is that these tests must go away. Standardized testing has gotten in the way of how teachers teach. It's ruining schools and making students hate school because it's all about memorizing and not actually learning and enjoying what your teacher's telling you. Teachers have decided that teaching the test is the best option mainly because it's a fear of losing your job. You need the students you're teaching to do good on these tests, and if they're not doing good at all, then your job may be at risk. So you teach the test, you teach what's necessary, but you don't instill a desire to learn. You make school this boring thing that kids hate. High scores hold the key to getting into the best university, so it makes sense why teachers would do this, but it still takes away the enjoyment in school, the desire, the passion in a student's heart to go every day, which is a big part of learning. Not only have standardized tests changed the way of teaching, but they offer not much help after the test. You don't get a ton of feedback. And even the small amount of feedback you get, teachers can't really put it in the classroom. So unless you have money for a private tutor, then the feedback you get isn't going to be that much help. Without a great way to teach the test and cultivating actual learning, it's easy for many students to fall through the cracks and fail, which can detract their life for years. Standardized testing has made it easy for richer students to succeed over poorer students, and have combined many students who don't meet them, and have kind of oppressed many students who don't meet the mold, the prep students, the ones from good families. It kind of suppresses them and it leaves them behind, which is so unfortunate. Considering that high ACT and SAT scores are a big part of getting into the good universities. Yeah, so money plays a huge role in success on these tests, whether it's having enough money to afford to take the test multiple times, being able to hire a tutor to help you, to go to prep classes, to go to private schools where you get more attention. Whatever's the reason, richer students get the advantage and poorer students don't. It is possible that you have a lot of money and all sorts of resource sources, but you still fail, and that could be caused by anxiety. Maybe you know all the information, but then it's time to sit down for the test and you start stressing, and all the information you've worked months to memorize and learn about just leave your head. That's another huge problem with these tests. There is so much writing on these test scores that it can cause students or even parents to make mistakes and not care about the learning, but just the results, the high scores. With your whole future at stake, students or even parents can be tempted to cheat or forget that it's important to actually learn this material, but just memorize the information, learn strategies, do whatever it takes to succeed, to get the highest scores. Because it is your future at stake. It's a lot riding on this 1 or 2 tests. Many students have given up trying to actually learn the information, but they memorize it, and they memorize it just long enough for these tests, and then after the test, it leaves their mind, which what good is that? Or sometimes they don't even learn it. They just learn strategies to pick the best answers. Always pick the same letter. Don't, make a pattern on your page. That won't help you. Or they just learn these strategies to help them get higher grades, rather than actually learning the information, which is the whole point. These tests are not effective. Students have mastered the ability to cheat the system. They know how to guess the highest scores. They know if you take the test on the West Coast, the East Coast kids have already taken it that day, and a lot of times the answers get leaked. They know all the strategies to cheat the system so they get the highest score. And I'm not saying some students don't score well and they don't deserve the score. Some students work very hard for the grades and get very high scores for a good reason, but sometimes anxiety gets in the way, or you're a very smart student, but you didn't have time for these prep classes, so you don't do as well as you could have. There's just way too many ways to gain the system. The wealthy get a head start, the poor have to catch up, which is not an easy thing to do or a fair thing to do at all. There are too many ways, or I'm sorry, not only does these loopholes to cheating, not only are there too many loopholes to cheating, but it's affecting people's future, so there has to be a change in the system. Is it right to give one test so much power that all the GPA, all the other 4 years of somebody's high school career doesn't matter as much as this one test? I don't think it does. I think we should get rid of these standardized testing and replace it with community service, real life experience, which is far more important than some test score, in my opinion.